hi everyone. We are back with APIM Hotrod. Today we have a guest. Toon is with us for the first time. We are opening our show to external audience, so you can follow our journey on APIM Hotrod.cloud. And let's start this new episode. How are you guys?
Fine.
Yes, doing
So,
great. Yes.
yeah, doing great. So I guess, Ton, today you're going to talk about GraphQL and let's say some return of experience you have with GraphQL together with API management, and I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
going to
true.
be a very interesting topic. Yeah. So Massimo, if it's okay, I propose that we let Ton explain a little bit his experience with that.
You are our hero, Toon. Please go ahead.
All right, Hero is too much for me, but I think it was three years ago that a colleague of mine introduced me to GraphQL. It was voted for a colleague of mine, and yeah, it was nice to see that GraphQL is really a cool API language because yeah, you can choose, let's say, what you select from the server. You can also fetch multiple resources at the same time, which is also a nice thing. And I think it's really a good solution to avoid very chatty solutions towards the backends. I think a good GraphQL API, it reads like a book with the intelligence that you have. You just write, I have, for example, a hotel. You will see it in my demo later on. I want to get the rooms of that hotel. So you just with the autocomplete, you see, okay, I can the room, and from a room I can ask this and that. So it's a very flexible way to fetch the data that you want for your particular scenario. That's really nice. And another thing that I learned is, of course, the GraphQL subscriptions. That's a kind of a WebSocket solution. In many modern applications, you want to get notified if something server-side happens. So normally, if you build a RESTful web application, you still need in .NET, for example, to have a single R hub to do that. And I think that's also one of the big advantages over there, that you can just do it with one protocol, so only one client to set up. So for me, that's a big advantage when building web applications over there.
Yeah, that sounds good indeed. So I think you had something to show, right? Or let's say maybe a solution to share. Yeah, good.
Yes, it's actually based on that experiences. I've applied together with my colleagues, of course, this on a big project where we had a kind of a microservices architecture. It was not about hotels; it was an industrial IoT project, but the concept is the same here in my demo environment. We had actually, of course, API management in front. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here on the show. And then we had the GraphQL gateway, which was actually a gateway in front of three backend services. We have the hotel pricing, so it's all in the context of hotel and booking hotel rooms. So if you want to get the price for the hotel, I'm just doing a dummy call in this API to Google and return some dummy data. My hotel catalog is really, okay, what countries do we have, which hotels are in that country, and what rooms do we have over there. That's situated here in the SQL database, and we have that hotel catalog API in front of it. And then we have the hotel booking API, which just returns some dummy data. You see here the coffee cups. This is actually a fantastic library. That's a hot chocolate library. If you're in .NET and you want to do GraphQL, it's a big recommendation from my side to use it because it's a fantastic library to get started. Another small thing that I do here is I stitch an REST API also into it. I will show that later on, where you have where we get the weather. So we have, let's say, for the hotel, we know the longitude and latitude, and with that we can fetch the weather information also to see what is the biggest temperature, of course, if you want to do some marketing on the website. So,
Good. And so, and of course, here you have API management in front.
yes.
Well, you might show it, but I know there are multiple GraphQL modes. So here you are like in pass-through, I suppose. You have synthetic and pass-through.
Indeed. Let's say GraphQL is quite complex. So to configure your whole GraphQL server in API management, it's too much of a hassle. And to be honest, the functionality is too limited. So in this scenario, I'm just using a kind of a pass-through, but of course with some extra security that if we have time, I want to show you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, good.
All right.
I'm all ears, and my eyes are here on your demo, Toon.
All right, perfect. So let me just show a first call, a very simple call. Simple. I have here the query, hotels by name that I can do, and I can provide the name. And then you can start, of course, what do I need from information? I want the city from that hotel and the name, of course. I want the country, but maybe, I have the country name, but I also want to have the country codes, for example, one like this. I'm asking for the weather, the temperature, and then per room, I want to have the room number, the price, and whether it's available in the next 2 days.
Yeah, and all of that in a single query, right?
All of that in a single query, but in the back, this should go to the 3 backend APIs.
Yeah,
That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't have to do this, but I think GraphQL is very good if you have microservices because you have a central gateway that can manage the traffic between them.
Yeah.
So I click on send here. I see pretty fast actually, 200 milliseconds, and it's running on container apps, so it was a little bit cold even. But then you see here, I get my information back, and nowadays in Brussels it should be 17 degrees. Sorry, in Bruges, and that's quite correct. Yeah, that's I'm not that far away from there. So you see, I get my hotel price, just the dummy price and the dummy availability, but it really comes from those backend services. So you can just pick what you want. There are multiple queries available. You can just go for hotels and ask for all the hotels and so on. So you're
like for instance, hotels by city, for instance, right? Typically, you would like, and you know where you want to travel. Okay.
Indeed. Yeah. So what challenges did we see on let's say a large scale project, and definitely when you're going distributed like this, is observability, because not sure if you've seen it, but this all of this GraphQL thing this is actually always on the same URL.
Endpoint. Yeah. Same endpoint.
So the URL is fixed, and it's always an HTTP post.
Yeah. It's only the payload that varies, let's say, from query to query. Yeah.
Even in most cases, if you have an exception, mostly you still get a 500 OK, a 200 OK back with the error in the response body. So if you use default monitoring tools, you get something like this. Your standard telemetry.
It's easy, at least.
Not optimal.
It's uniform.
It's uniform, yeah.
Well, you can make a select distinct, right? Because I think with one line you have all. Yeah.
Indeed. And if I show this demo, this query, for example, you see then that the blue part, the room information that comes from the hotel catalog, and the orange one from there. But of course, you don't get that much information. So what you could do is you could enable open telemetry on your GraphQL server. So in this case, in Hot Chocolate, I've enabled it. And if you do that, you get, of course, nice things. So if I go to my last call that I made, every call gets its unique ID here. It's a server-side generated ID. And if I go to my API management solution here, but mostly to my application insights, I just paste it over there. You will hopefully see, oh, no, let me refresh.
Maybe 24 hours? Maybe, yeah, okay.
Yeah, there it is, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Let me click on that. The timeline is, of course, also the most nice thing to show. But then you see here my API management. The original call went to my supergraph. That's my gateway, my GraphQL gateway. And then from there on, you see, okay, we do hotels by name. You see, for example, this is the hotel catalog server that eventually went to MySQL database. You see here, I went to the hotel booking container app with the call and stuff.
Yeah, so you see really all the backends that were involved in that query, which is also then pretty useful to see, if I suppose, right, if you have performance issues, you could also see, okay, maybe it's actually going way or too many services with APIs and open telemetry, then you have that visibility then.
Yeah, totally. So here also we go to Google, and here even the Open Meteo API, so that's an open source API. If you click on this, you see here that, we call that API with the longitude, latitude. That was actually retrieved from that SQL database. So everything automatically done by the GraphQL server.
And so the GraphQL server, so you advised Hot Chocolate. That's actually Hot
Yes.
Chocolate making the orchestration, if I could say, like coding A, B, C, consolidate, and return, right?
Yeah, indeed.
That's Hot
That's
Chocolate making the
actually, you
magic.
don't need to take care of that. He's smart enough to know, before I go to B, I first need to go to A,
Yeah.
otherwise you don't.
So
So that's all
oh, yeah,
managed with
that's, that's nice. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe also one small thing I want to show here is the application map. There's a lot of noise around this because I'm using managed identity, but I prepared the view already, which removes all that noise. And then you actually see here, we have API management in front, then the super graph, and then we have the hotel pricing API, the catalog, and the booking API. I see the references here to the Google, to the SQL database. So actually, my whole diagram, my architecture diagram, is actually available over here. So
yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's indeed very similar to what you showed.
yeah,
That's
indeed.
nice.
So we talked already. You talked already about it. Here about performance. Let me maybe first then take that challenge. Because of course, you have the orchestration between different APIs. So there's a lot of network traffic going on. So if you look, for example, at this call, we do hotels by name. We ask for the rooms, and then for every room, I want to get the prices. So what will we do? We will do a request to our hot chocolate gateway. That one will see, first we need to go to the catalog. So we go to the catalog, get the number of all the rooms of that hotel. And then we go to the hotel pricing API. And by default, we will have simple resolvers over there to get the hotel price for a room. And then we will have, for every room, one API call to the backend. This will then be assembled and so on. So it goes in parallel, it goes very quick. So if you don't have any monitoring, you even don't know that this is actually very chatty and putting your backend under stress. So to make sure that you don't have that kind of issue, you should use data loaders. And data loaders is a concept in GraphQL, which makes sure that, if possible, of course, on your backend, and actually it should, that you can go in batch, so that you can do one query with all your room IDs included, and fetch them in batch from your database, from your underlying.
But then
API.
you have to do that yourself, right? In the backend, so you have to code it as a batch. Let's say.
That's you need to code it, and that's a little bit by default. You don't do that. So by default, if you just use the hot chocolate or whatever library that you're using, you're just using simple resolvers, and then you're sitting in such a chatty situation. Because of course, GraphQL gives you a lot of freedom to query. So these hotels, it can be hundreds of hotels. So of course, then it can become a problem.
So actually, it's the equivalent, the n+1 problem of entity framework. Somehow you see this here, right?
Yeah, it's the API version of that problem. Maybe I can show you also the logging of that. And everything actually starts with your logging, because if you don't have good monitoring, you don't know that this is happening behind the scenes. So I have here a query, performance without a data loader. Let me first fetch the request of the ID of my previous call. Otherwise, we need to wait again till application insights is up to date. So let's avoid this. You see, the call works fine. It's still fast, so you think we don't have an issue. But if I now go to my application insights and I do a lookup on this key, voila, and we go to the timeline, you will see at the bottom, there were actually 11 rooms, but then here you see 11 physical calls to Google.
And luckily enough, Google is fast.
But that tone comes. So now the question is, it comes very natural to me. So with hot chocolate, do you have a caching, or you have to take care about caching? Because even if I don't use the data loader, suppose for whatever reason, I want most of the time those 11 things to be cached in memory, for example.
As far as I know, you don't have any caching by default. You have middleware to inject it, but you don't have it by default included.
Okay.
So you would have to cache it yourself.
Yes. So if we just now do the call with the data loader, you can just choose. I made here an attribute, use data loader true or
Okay.
false,
Yeah.
just to make it easy to simulate.
Smart.
Let me take just this one. Take the call, do the transaction search, one like this. Voila. View timeline. So we still have, of course, you see that this information needs to be fetched. But then if you go to the back, you only see one call to your Google, because these, what is it, 11 hotel prices are in one request. So that's a good thing over there.
Yeah. So, but of course, you might have. Well, okay, that would be more on edge cases. But you might also have. Can you decide? I suppose you can decide on the size of the batch, right? Because otherwise, you would end up with maybe a massive query, and that would be maybe too much. So you can decide yourself, of course, on the batch size, right?
Yeah, indeed.
You might still
So
have
by default,
queries,
you are only using resolvers.
Yeah.
You can use data loaders, and if you want, you can mix the two and maybe indeed go in a batched way. Yes. But typically, of course, the first time you develop something with a new library, you're just using the standard stuff that's over there.
So you don't especially see this. So yeah, a good advice would be, of course, if people watch this video, they should be warned already. But otherwise, a good advice is already to try with quite a lot of data, or just to see that you don't face performance or scaling limits.
Indeed.
Too soon. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then maybe another one that we noticed was the error handling. There are always, of course, the same things that come up. But what did we have? Yeah, we had microservices, a lot of development going on. So sometimes, an API just crashed and didn't do what it had to do. But by default, and that was more due to the GraphQL library that we used, if we had an unhandled exception over here, it returned an internal server error to our GraphQL gateway, and it wasn't able to handle it. And then we got also an
exception bubbling, basically.
So it was bubbling up, which is, of course, not optimal, because we still have this data available. Why not returning that data?
Because then the behavior was okay. Exception bubbling took priority somehow. So even the 200 part, I mean, the data that was successful was not returned at all. So it was only the exception.
Indeed, yes. Okay. So what we had to do over there was here. We had to implement a custom response formatter to make sure even it was an unhandled exception, so real internal server error, that we returned an HTTP 200, like actually the GraphQL standard requires. And you just return null at your data, and you have an error section.
Then, of course, your client needs to be somehow GraphQL aware as well. I mean, because it's also atypical to return a 200 on an error. You see what I mean? So somehow that's also a bit counterintuitive. So you need to know that 200 might still mean that you have exceptions, basically.
Yeah, and that's the intention. If you have exceptions in GraphQL, that you still return it in the 200, but in an error section. I can show you how that works. So if you go to error handling over here, we can simulate an exception again. It's easy. It's a demo API, but then you see something unexpected happened. It's still an HTTP 200. We have the error section. Yes, but we still get all the rest of the information. You see, everything is available except it's on the pricing that we threw an exception. You see, the pricing is still fine. So that's a good advice, that you make sure, definitely, if you go the microservices way and you have multiple backend APIs, it's a good one to take into account.
Indeed. Good.
And then maybe a last thing that I want to show you guys is security. First of all, and maybe that's not a challenge but first, how we use Azure API management with that, because GraphQL can do it, but I think security, if possible, if you can move that to your API manager, it's even much better, because then you don't consume any resources on your.
You discard as soon as possible what's.
Indeed. Of course, if you have a multi-tenant solution, it's already more difficult to do it in API management, because then you need to take it into account in your where clauses and stuff. But what we had here was actually a very nice GraphQL policy. That was the word I was looking for. So let me show you that policy here in API management. And this is the API management in front of it. The V1 was completely passed through. The V2, there I configured security just to make sure that I can use them side by side. So what do we have over here? Maybe I need to make it a bit bigger. First, a typical validation of the JOTS token. And so we used Azure AD over there, maybe a little bit more, yeah, like this. And then I extract the claim, the roles claim. And so we use the application roles in Azure AD. And then we come to the GraphQL specific part, where actually here you could say, validate GraphQL requests. I want a maximum depth of 5. So you can only go 5 levels deep into your
query. Yeah.
And then you can say, okay, if you want to get some information about the hotel, so you want to access the type hotel, your role claim here needs to contain the hotel catalog.read access.
Yeah.
If you have that, we will allow it.
Else
if you don't have that, we will remove it. By
Ah,
removing, we mean your query will still succeed, but we will remove that from the response that we return.
Yeah, you will not get the data.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
And so you see, these are all for the queries. For example, if you want to see the room availability, you need to have the hotel booking.reads role. And then, of course, you can also add your mutations to it, your subscriptions, and make sure that you have here a rejection at the end for everything that is not included.
Yeah, mutations are like really changing data, right? For the ones who have really no clue about GraphQL. Yeah, okay.
We did mention that before, indeed. Yeah. So you see here, if you want to, for example, change the room capacity, you need to have the hotel catalog.write access. Otherwise, we will reject you.
Yeah.
And I can show you that in a demo here. So here we have a query. Let me run this query. And it says, okay, lifetime validation failed. My token is expired.
Yeah.
I would re-authenticate again here.
Yeah.
Voila, proceed.
Yeah, so we saw the Jewett validation in action, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm in and I have all the rights that I need, because if I validate this JOT token here, you see I have hotel weather, hotel catalog, and hotel booking.read rights.
Indeed.
Let's now try to ask something about the price.
Yeah.
If I go to my body over here, a room, and I ask for the pricing, and just for the price, this still works, but you will see that the price is not in here.
Yeah.
There's no price in here because I don't have the access rights. We decided not to throw an exception, but we just decided to remove that data in API management.
Then again, the client needs to be aware, because the price is not even set to null, it's removed completely. So client needs to be flexible enough to know that the schema could vary according to, the schema of the response could vary according to which permissions the user has. Yeah, so
to be honest, I'm not 100% sure if this would be my desired behavior. I just included this to show you that you have both the options, remove and reject. To be honest, I think it's more clear to say you don't have any access to access the price and just do something else.
I would say something else, Toon. I find strange that we cannot see the price when you want to book a room.
Indeed, yeah.
And because you mentioned, Toon, the design, let's say we are almost at the end of our time, but you mentioned, designing API. I was wondering, is designing, according to you, GraphQL API more challenging? Because I suppose you have to think about which kind of data you want to surface too much, so overfetching, underfetching, or also, the schema of it might evolve in a weird way of all of these APIs that you have under the hood. So how is designing a GraphQL API according to you? What is your experience?
Oh, for me, it was quite a challenge. Not really, because I really had in mind what we wanted to do. We had a kind of a similar thing like hotels and stuff. So I knew what I wanted to achieve, because I wanted to read like a book. I knew if I go to a machine, I want to get the sensors of that machine, and if I go to the sensor, I want to get the latest values and stuff. So in my head, it was pretty clear, but to make it a technical contract, then it was quite challenging because the tooling is rather limited. So I had to do it, let's say, just in Visual Studio Code. There's one tool that I really like is the GraphQL Voyager, which really allows you to browse your schema, and you see all the relationships like you have kind of a data model. So that tool really helped me to visualize how my GraphQL API looked like, and it also helps to get the message to the developers and to the users of the API. So,
And so
but
then
it's
maybe, sorry, yeah. So also then maybe just to summarize, so in the APIM, so we had two modes. So pass-through mode still has value because you can use policies, right, to actually filter our, let's say, put authorization policies and so on. Synthetic mode, then basically you've not used that yet, or I mean, is that something? Which use case could you tackle with it? I understood it's much
To be
lighter.
honest,
Yeah.
I tried it out, of course. There's something new, you need to play around with it. But I would never recommend it unless you have maybe one thing you want to, you have a full API, and you have maybe one functionality that is not in there that you want to stitch somehow into the API. Then I would maybe consider it. But it's just it's a hassle to configure. It's again API management policy. It's too much. You cannot test it and stuff. And it's also a resolver that you write. So if again under high and complex queries, you don't have that data loader functionality.
Which then you will quickly hit scalability issues. Then last question on my side, and then promise the last one. WAF, Web Application Firewall, and GraphQL. I have some customers who have troubles with this. So did you also meet issues or encounter issues with this?
Well, it's funny because I was not aware of that issue, but I think you mentioned me 1 year ago. And now I faced also that issue at another client, because again, it's URL based, it's a fixed URL. You cannot make exceptions for specific operations to say, okay, there we can be a little bit more
Disable the
flexible.
policy, indeed.
The same
So
with
in the end, what did you do
network
then?
segregation.
Yeah, indeed, same. Yeah, you cannot really do path-based stuff because it's always the same path. But then, okay, so did you end up disabling the WAF policies that were causing issues entirely, or
Yes, because we didn't have the time at that moment to really investigate. Maybe did you find a solution to really have
well,
a good?
no, they could be solutions, but it's really tedious and cumbersome. So you can, of course, inspect the body with custom WAF rules and then say, okay, but still, that's not ideal. No, what would be great is that Microsoft, if they could, let's say, update the WAF policies and have maybe a rule set that is targeting or including GraphQL specific things, that would be nice because some other players on the market have this. Right, so it would be interesting that we have something for the WAF policies that either are linked to front door or app gateway. So today there is no solution, let's say, out of the box, and indeed that can be challenging.
And also the same for Microsoft Defender for APIs, for example.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was wondering. Sorry, I interrupt you. Please go ahead. Sorry.
The same counts, I guess, for Microsoft Defender for APIs. The last time I checked it, not sure
for GraphQL.
It's
that
also
I don't know.
REST only.
REST only.
Yes, it is REST only. And I was interrupting you because I was thinking building a custom query on WAF to support this scenario. It will be a huge headache for a long time. So it's very time consuming. And then at the end of the day, you ask yourself, am I really doing the right stuff?
No, indeed, that's why I bring this on the table. Plus, of course, if you start to have too many rules, then you could also have performance issues just at the WAF level, right? Because it needs to evaluate all those rules and so on.
But also from operation point of view, Stefan, to roll out all of those rules over time, when you change your APIs, you change the schema, you have to put in place an organization and a testing phase that is really
But the thing is that GraphQL itself seems to generate some characters in the queries and so on that are not WAF, let's say, friendly, and so generating also a lot of false positives in the end. But the thing is, yeah, a module would be ideal, right? Because if you tell a security team, yeah, I'll just disable all the rules, typically they will not like it too much. So you need we need to find something. But okay, that was just to see a bit if you also encountered yeah, WAF issues, and so you confirmed it.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. It was a great episode. I believe so. I like so badly what you showed to us, Tony. So Tone. So I'm really I want to thank you for joining our show and everyone else that will watch this video on YouTube on our
Yeah,
channel.
very nice. Thank you, Tom. Thank you,
Thanks for
Massimo.
having me, guys.
So see you soon. Bye bye.
You, bye.
Thanks.